Do you want to learn how to stretch a canvas? That's our subject today. So I sometimes stretch my own canvases, and these were two paintings that I made on extra scraps of canvas. So I decided I would go ahead and stretch them, and as you can see, I've left some extra on the edge, and that's very important if you're going to be stretching a canvas that you don't want to paint all the way to the edge, or at least to remember that that part of the painting will wrap around the edge. And the amount that you want to leave is dependent on how thick your stretcher bars are. But anyway, this is what you'll need for stretching your canvas. You'll obviously need a set of stretcher bars, some keys. This is optional but good for especially a larger canvas, is a stretching pliers, a staple gun, and a hammer or mallet. Alright, I decided to work on the floor, but a work table would be great. Since it's carpeted, I put down a piece of plywood to work on to just make a harder and more stable surface. So we're going to just put the stretching bars together, and I had to buy mine individually, so I had to make sure I bought two of each size. And some might be sold in pairs, so just double check when you're buying so you're not surprised when they arrive. And then it's really important to make sure that you're making a right angle on the ends, especially for larger canvases, because if it's off, if you're making like a parallelogram, you're going to end up with a slacking and buckled canvas that's just not stretched properly, and it's not going to look well either. Besides gently tapping all the corners until you can kind of see the creases between them, they should be pretty even. And then if you had a right angle or a T-square, that would be also helpful for just making sure you have a nice right angle for each of the corners. So as you can see, the flat side is going to go on the back, and you might ask why that the beveled side's not on the back. And that's because you don't want the flat side to press into the canvas, so they keep it almost suspended over the beveled edges. And also this will make it easy to put the staples on the back. Now this painting has oil pastel, and it needs a coat of varnish so it's not getting all over me. And that brings me to another point, is make sure your painting is completely dry, because you're pressing it down on the surface and you don't want to mess up the painting. Alright, so what I am doing now is I am just by hand putting one staple in the center of each side. And I put my staples on a diagonal. Some people put it kind of horizontal and have them all lined up like a dotted line. Now here is a very important part, and this is the folding of the edges. So as you can see, I start with one side that's just completely folded over all the way, and then I poke my finger in at the corner, and then it's almost like folding a sheet on a mattress, really. And I'll do it one more time so you can see how that went. But you basically want to make sure that underneath you have a really straight fold and not a bunched up fold. You want it to lie as flat as possible. And you also want to have a kind of like a 90-degree angle so that the fold goes all the way to the corner and is not like exposing like a triangle. You also want to leave enough fabric that you don't have unraveling of your canvas at the edges. So I'm right now, look at the mess there. That's what I was going to tell you is just make sure that your painting's all the way dry. So that's not actually paint, that was oil pastel on my hand. So I'm going to go back and varnish this painting when I'm done stretching it. So here we go with another corner. I leave enough room. I don't staple anymore until I get this fold. You need as much working room as possible. So don't staple to the ends until you get your fold done. And as you see, I just I folded one side over and then I poke my finger in, and it kind of you want it to, like I said, be lined up with the corner. You don't want it to have an exposed triangle on the side, but there will be a triangle fold underneath the fold, if that makes sense. Okay, let's talk about the staples. So these staples are, I think, 5/8 inch width. And I'll show you more about them in a minute, but let's actually, I'm going to trim here. It's better to have a little more overhang and have to trim it than to have not enough to fold over all the way to the back of your canvas. And you can do just staples on the side, but most people nowadays are doing gallery wrap, which means wrapping all the way to the back of the canvas. So here's the different sizes. Now these are really deep. When I tried these ones, they were so deep and thick that they would actually not go all the way in and kind of be like sticking out, and I couldn't even hammer them in. And then these others right here, 1/4 inch, they were not enough. They wouldn't even hold the canvas to the wood. So what works best for the weight of the fabric, and I believe it's a pine stretcher bar, are these 5/8 inch, which is just over a 1/2 inch. And so you just need to maybe play around. The staples are pretty inexpensive, so you might want to get several kinds just for different projects. Okay, here we go again one more time. So I'm going in after I fold the first side, and I just poke my finger in, and it honestly kind of already, it's like the canvas knows what to do. And then just make a really clean, just make sure the folds underneath are flat and bring it all the way down to make a square. And here's the last thing I'm going to do after I get all the staples in place is we're just going to make it as tight as a drum, and these keys will help with that. So as you can see, there's 2 slashes or gaps in the corners, and that's where the stretcher bars go, and they will just give it an extra stretch. And I start with the one that's closest to the canvas so that the next one is closer to me and I can see where I'm putting it. And so we're just going to put it in. As you can see, it's kind of a wedge, and as you tap it in, do it really gently, it'll stretch, and you just want to do it until it stops on its own. You don't want to whack it so hard that you break the wood, either the key or your stretcher bar, which I've done both of those before. You also don't want to force it. Sometimes these keys will have a splinter in them and they're just a little defective. You might have to order an extra pack of them just so you have some spares. Anyway, here's what it will look like when it's done. Knowing how to properly stretch a canvas is a really great skill for any artist to have. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, leave a thumbs up.